Yeah. I mean, kids definitely need some carbs. And, fruit is not bad. So, with fruit, I treat fruit really more as a dessert, helping them learn how to read the food labels and then also learning what swaps they can make.
Mhm.
Vitamin D deficiency is so common in children and adults. And that's where, educating them about how to feed their microbiome, what's good for the microbiome, what's not so good, at least so they have the information and the knowledge. The thing is, when your gut microbiome is in a healthy state, it wants to go back to that healthy state even after an ultra processed drink or antibiotics or whatever it is. And so the key is, for the most part, really working on that foundation. At home we really build that foundation of whole gut resilience. I don't necessarily think kids need probiotics every day. I would say the most important place I think that parents can start is by looking at the label and reducing the sugar intake. Yeah. I mean, I would tell parents listening that it's never too late to get to a healthier microbiome.
Okay, now I'd like to talk about children's diet. And there are many opinions on what an ideal diet looks like. But these days, reducing carbohydrate intake for kids has becoming a big topic. So diets like ketogenic or low carb are often discussed. And then understand the benefits of cutting back on refined carbs. But should growing children follow the same approach? Some people even argue that the kids should avoid fruits because of the natural sugar in it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah. I mean, kids definitely need some carbs.
Mhm.
And, fruit is not bad. It's just that
Mhm.
for some kids, I do have some patients who they eat a ton of fruit all day long and no vegetables,
Okay.
right? And so we want to balance out because fruits do have more sugar in them. So it's not the same as having a soda, but it still is more sugar, right? And then even with the carbs, kids do need carbohydrates to, feel fuller. The carbohydrates tend to actually have some good fiber in them. So things like, um, whole grains have fiber, beans, lentils, all of that. I mean, really good fiber. And to feed our microbiome, your microbiome needs fiber
Mhm.
and they need the color, the phytonutrients that we find in fruits and vegetables. And so this again is really about balance. So with fruit, I treat fruit really more as a dessert. So I think that kids should have, like, ideally one serving of fruit a day. And then the rest of their 4 or 5 servings of fruits and vegetables should be vegetables, right?
Mm.
So focusing on vegetables and a variety as much as possible, because each of the different colors has a different benefit, not just for our microbiome, but for our eyes or our immune system or our brain or our heart. And so different benefits. Those colors that we call phytonutrients, we don't actually use them as human beings. One of the most popular phytonutrients right now is curcumin or turmeric, that yellow, right? Really good anti-inflammatory properties. But what's fascinating is we don't really absorb it. We don't really use it as humans, but our microbiome does. Our microbiome uses that turmeric and converts it into then compounds, chemicals that we use as human beings. So
Mhm.
it's our microbiome that actually transforms a lot of these phytonutrients.
Mhm.
And then in terms of the whole grains, it's just that really. And again, I'm guessing it's the same in Korea as here, but the American diet is so carb heavy. For instance, pasta or rice, like a huge bowl of pasta or rice, and then just a little bit of the sauce and maybe a little bit of vegetables. So when I think about a plate, I would love for kids to have, almost half the plate is vegetables,
Mhm.
right? And then, a quarter to a third of the plate is your protein, right? And it can be beans, it can be plant-based protein. It doesn't have to be just animal protein. And then we have, that rest of that third or that sliver of your plate. That's where we have the starch, whether it's potato or rice or pasta.
Mm-hmm.
right? And even then, when we're looking at those starches and we want to look at what has more fiber, right? And brown rice has much more fiber than white rice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or if we use like whole grain, less processed pasta, that has much more fiber than white pasta. So when you have more fiber relative to your carbohydrates, then it actually has a lower impact of sugar on our body. So the more fiber, the better. And that makes the carbohydrates not as, quote, bad for our blood sugar and our metabolism.
But how about, high fiber foods can sometimes cause digestive issues for very young children, around 2 to 3 years old. In those cases, do you still recommend giving them high fiber grains like brown rice?
I mean, when you're younger, you're still developing all of those enzymes to digest. So it may be that you know, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds are just going to do better on white rice because it doesn't require a lot of as many enzymes to digest it.
Mhm.
But once their digestion is stronger, and then you can see because if it's too much fiber, then they might get tummy aches and constipation,
Mhm.
right? The same thing happens with adults, especially for adults who aren't used to having a lot of fiber in their diet. If all of a sudden they start eating a lot of fiber, then they can get constipated pretty badly. So you want to start slow and just slowly increase and see how you manage it. Now, as you increase the fiber slowly in your diet, you start feeding the probiotics that use that fiber. So
Mhm.
then it doesn't just get stuck in your intestines. And
Mm.
as you build up the probiotics in your gut that can digest the fiber, you can handle more fiber. So it becomes this sort of, like a win-win,
Oh,
situation.
got it. So you're saying that you should gradually increase the fiber intake to help prevent digestive issues, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now I like to talk about ultra processed food. We all know that these foods contain too much sugar, salt, and artificial additives. And it's best for kids to avoid them. But in reality, it's really hard for parents to completely eliminate them from their children's diet. And that's why I love to ask some practical tips. Even if we cook healthy meals at home, kids still love eating junk food when they are out with their friends and it's a part of their social life. So completely banning ultra processed food seems nearly impossible for me. And sometimes things like boba tea feels necessary for them to fit in. So, what advice do you have for parents facing these challenges and how we find a realistic balance?
Yeah. And I know, I mean, I have two teenagers now. They're 15 and 13, and you can't just say no. You need to first give them a reason and educate them. That's where, educating them about how to feed their microbiome, what's good for the microbiome, what's not so good, at least so they have the information and the knowledge, right?
Right.
Because, when they're teenagers and young kids, they still don't have enough of that um, rational decision making part of their brain. The prefrontal cortex is not
Right.
fully developed yet, right? So it's really hard when they know on the one hand, okay, I shouldn't have this much sugar, but then they really want it, right? And so then they have it, right?
Right.
It's hard for adults too, right? I
Right.
mean, how many
Right.
times as an adult do you look at that, you know you shouldn't have the donut, but you really want it, so then you eat it, right? So it's not about never. The thing is, when your gut microbiome is in a healthy state, it wants to go back to that healthy state even
Mm.
after an ultra processed drink or antibiotics or whatever it is. And so the key is, for the most part, really working on that foundation. At home we really build that foundation of whole gut resilience. And my kids know when they go out, if they want to have a boba with their friends, then they can have it, but then we're going to make a bubble around it to get our gut back on track.
Mm.
So we're going to make sure that afterwards, we're eating really good, high fiber, lots of colorful fruits and vegetables, and minimizing the sugar for at least the next day or two,
Mhm.
right? And I do have them, count, just be aware of the grams of added sugar and look at labels. I don't want them to be obsessive. I don't want them to, be afraid to eat something, but I want them to know, right? There's a chip called Takis. Do you have that in Korea?
No.
Oh, it's this rolled tortilla chip um,
Okay.
that has this artificial red powder all over it, right? And it has like a chili flavor, so it's a little spicy, right? And kids here in the States love it. A lot of kids do, right?
Mhm.
But it has a lot of artificial ingredients. It has a lot of ingredients that, I mean, it probably has, like, if you look on the label, 50 ingredients just to make one chip, right? And a lot of these ingredients we know can be very harmful for brain development and of course for the gut microbiome. So my children have learned to read food labels and they know, okay, this is really not something that is great for me. They connect the dots when they have it. They pay attention to how do they play soccer that afternoon? Are they just as fast or what is their mood like? So they're aware so that the next time they can make more of an informed decision. Some kids will feel terrible after they eat, something really sugary or something artificial, but still want it the next time, right? That's okay, but at least they
Mhm.
know. And then when they're in college or adults, that rational part of the brain can start making these decisions. I know I have an exam tomorrow, so yeah, I'm not gonna. We have to trust. We trust that education, it will follow them. They will know, right? But it's not just enough to say, oh, we're not going to have the Takis chips. When we go to the grocery store with my kids, we look and we find other alternatives because you can have less processed chips that, yeah, they're not homemade, but they're okay. They're much better than those other ones, right? So my son can still go to the store, get a bag of chips and hang out with his friends, but they're chips that, he likes the taste of and I'm happy with, right? Same thing with drinks. We have a lot of sports drinks now that have artificial colors. It's not just Gatorade. There's so many other kinds out here. So and also artificial sugars in there. And so, I mean, he knows that I am really not happy with that kind of a drink. So then we go to the store and we find other drink alternatives that he's happy with that we can have, right? That he can have and that I'm happy with too. So it's about educating, helping them learn how to read the food labels, and then also learning what swaps they can make. So they can still be part of hanging out at lunch or going out with their friends, right? And then the beauty of teaching them how to read those labels is that when they are in college or young adults and buying their own food, grocery shopping, they know to look on the label and choose which spaghetti sauce they want to buy or which, I don't know, like which jjajangmyeon sauce they want to buy, right? Because
Right.
when I go to the Korean store, I mean, in our grocery store, there are many, many chips and sauces that
Right.
have ingredients that really I am a little shocked at because you think, oh, Korean food is healthy for you, right? But if you don't know, you don't know to put that down and then look at the next one, right? Like just look down there. Although I will have to say, at least at the store here, I couldn't find any Korean chips that I thought were okay because my kids wanted something, right? So we
Right.
ended up getting a little sweet thing because the sweet thing actually had less chemicals in it than the chips, right? The
Mhm.
shrimp chips and the whatever.
Right, right. So you mean like American kids get education in school about how to read the label on foods? No?
No, no, I wish. I
Oh,
wish. I mean, I teach my kids, I teach my patients. In the book, I teach kids. I want them to
right.
read that part on
Mhm.
how to read labels. And I've gone into the schools, like right now, it's funny, as we're speaking, like tomorrow morning, my son's in eighth grade. And so in here, middle school is six, seven, eighth grade. Okay.
Mhm.
And so my school, relies on a lot of parent volunteers to teach these extra special classes, these electives. So I made a 6-week class for my son's middle school, 6 to 8 graders. So they're 12 to 14 years of age. And so it's been really fun because I've been able to go in on the first day. We taught them all about their microbiome and their gut brain connection and their gut immune system connection. We made chocolate pudding, but with black beans and avocado and nuts and seeds that the kids loved. Tomorrow, I'm going to go in and we're going to talk all about fermented foods.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're going to and why fermented foods are so good for you. And then we're going to make it fun. We're going to make fermented lemonade. We're going to make sauerkraut. We're going to make fermented salsa, and then we're going to do a tasting. I actually am bringing in some kimchi for them to try. So we just want to make it fun for our kids, right?
Yes, I think that you brought up a really important point. I wish the schools in Korea had classes like this as well. When I ask my son or other kids in his age, most of them have no idea what ultra-processed foods even means. And that's because we never teach them how to identify it. So if we don't teach them, they won't know what real food is and what's actually good for them. I really hope that one day schools will have regular lessons to help kids to learn how to tell real healthy food.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, it's not even here in the States. It's not routinely taught. And so, I mean, that's partly why, again, I wrote the book so that parents can go through it with their kids and just have some fun ideas and make the recipes together, right? I mean, there's some great recipes in there too for kids to try.
Now, for the final question, I want to talk about children's supplements. Considering the current nutritional status of kids, are there any supplements that you believe they absolutely need to take? Some experts say that if children eat well and get enough sleep, they don't need any supplements at all. And what are your thoughts on that? And if there are any supplements that all children should take, what would they be?
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. It is ideally we would get all of our nutrients from food, right? Because food is medicine, but there's a couple of problems with that. One is that most kids are not eating a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and really getting in all of the nutrients that they need from food. Or two is even if you have a kid who eats everything and they're, the quote best eater, our food is not the same. Our soil has become depleted. If we think about our plants, our fruits and vegetables and our whole grains and, nuts and seeds and beans, the reason they get their nutrients is because they absorb those nutrients from the vitamins and the minerals from the soil. But our soil has become depleted, whether it's from over farming or even from the pesticides and the herbicides that we use on the ground. And so food is not as nutrient dense. They're not getting the same amount of nutrients. So that's one piece of it. The second piece of it is in our modern world, our kids and adults, we need more nutrients to deal with the increased stress and the extra support our brain needs, or to detoxify and get rid of all the environmental toxins that now we're exposed to everywhere. So we have a higher need for more nutrition and more nutrients, and the food that we're eating doesn't have as many nutrients as it used to. So I still think that for the most part, most kids would benefit from supplements. Now, when we think about, is there, one supplement or two that I think are absolutely necessary? I have not found an amazing multivitamin here in the United States just yet. There's not one that I love, right? And a lot of vitamins for kids have a lot of sugar in them.
Right.
Right. And I don't know if gummy vitamins are popular in Korea, but they're really popular here. And some of them have in one serving, like 1 teaspoon or 5 grams of sugar. And so if we're not careful, all of a sudden we give your kids a gummy vitamin D D, a gummy probiotic, a gummy fish oil, a gummy vitamin, and all of a sudden that's 4 teaspoons of sugar right there, right? And so when I looked, I would say one of the nutrients that almost all kids need as a supplement is vitamin D.
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D deficiency is so common in children and adults, and it's so important for brain functioning, for mood support, for immune support, for hormones. So it's one of our most important. It's actually not even technically a vitamin. It's actually a hormone, and it's so important for us. And I do check blood tests to measure kids' vitamin D levels. Almost all need more vitamin D. So I would say that's going to be important. And I imagine in Korea it's the same. And then another vitamin that many kids need are fish oils, omega-3 fatty acids from fish oils. Now, I think fish and seafood is a bigger part of the Korean diet than it is here for the most part. But many kids here, maybe they eat salmon every once in a while, but they really don't eat a lot of seafood. So they're not getting the healthy fats that are so important for their brain and their skin and their immune system. And the question about probiotics, I get a lot of parents asking, well, should my kids take probiotics every day?
Right.
I don't necessarily think kids need probiotics every day. I do think that they need to feed their microbiome every day with fiber and phytonutrients, and then use probiotic supplements as needed, like after antibiotics or other medications, or if you're traveling and we know microbiome disruption can occur with jet lag, or if there's a party and there's a lot of cupcakes and candy and all that stuff, right? So sort of as needed, but not necessarily every day. And I would love kids to get more fermented foods in. That's one of the best ways to support your microbiome. So again, feeding your microbiome with the nutrients they need, and then taking probiotic supplements sort of, on an as-needed basis, and prioritizing fermented foods is going to be one of the best ways to go.
Okay. So you mentioned about vitamin D and omega-3, and then probiotics when needed. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Lastly, what is the most important piece of advice you can give to parents or caregivers in Korea? Is there any other things that we can implement right away in daily life to increase our kids' wellness?
Yeah. I mean, I would tell parents listening that it's never too late to get to a healthier microbiome. Right. No matter, even if your child has already had many rounds of antibiotics, right? Or even if your child has eczema right now, or asthma, or maybe they already have anxiety, it's never too late to work on your child's gut and get their microbiome healthier. So we just have to know to start. And so now, if with parents and listening and aware, they know, okay, we're going to start with our child's gut, right? The first step to do, gosh, I mean, like I said, there's so many different places you could start. I would say the most important place I think that parents can start is by looking at the label and reducing the sugar intake. I think sugar is one of the most problematic ingredients in our food nowadays, all the added sugar. So if you could just do that one thing, is, look at the label, look at the added sugars, and keep the added sugars down, and make those swaps to foods with lower added sugars. That's going to be one of the best things you can do for your child's health.
여러분, 엘리사 송 선생님과의 인터뷰 어떠셨나요? 저는 아이의 장 건강에 좀 더 신경을 써야겠다는 생각과 함께 초가공식품과 식품 라벨을 읽는 법을 아이에게 좀 더 자세히 알려줘야겠다는 생각이 들었습니다. 여러분의 자녀가 건강하게 크는데 도움이 되는 내용이면 좋겠어요. 저는 오늘도 여러분의 홀썸한 식사를 응원합니다.